Welcome to AstroTwins Radio, your cosmic GPS for life, love, and everything written in the stars. We're Tali and Ophira Edut, the AstroTwins, here to decode the astrology of the moment and help you navigate your destiny like a pro.
Well, hey there, everyone. It's the week of January 12th to 18th, and wow, we don't even know where to begin. But Tali here in Seattle this week.
Ophi in New York. And yeah, wow. I mean, last week we were like really hesitant because we were like, oh,
Bad
we don't want to
news.
scare people, but it looks like pretty fiery. And we could not have imagined that the tragic ice murder of Renee Nicole Good would be what set off what we were seeing and sensing in the stars.
And it happened, right close to what's called a Mars Cazimi, when Mars, the planet of war and anger, winds up in the heart of the sun, within 3 degrees of the sun, and just, the Cazimi, the conjunction, call it what you will, those planets are blending their energy. The sun is like just inflaming that tension. But we also had a Venus Cazimi last week. So the planet of peace and values and love and unity and harmony was also getting spotlighted by the sun, and then Venus
And that was a little
Mars.
confusing for us too, because we're like Venus and Mars, the planet of peace and the planet of war, or the planet. They're also known as the love planets. They're what we follow for. Venus is sort of the more of the romantic, and Mars is more of the fiery, passionate. And when you look at it from that point of view, but we weren't quite sure how that was going to play out because it was with Capricorn, which rules authority, kind of the uniformed class of the world, governments. And we saw that. I mean, one of what I saw was kind of the best expressions of it was a surprising clip from the former Minnesota governor, Jesse Ventura. So when I briefly lived in Minnesota, we sold our first business, our magazine Hughes, in the 90s to a company that was based in Duluth, Minnesota. And the terms were that one of us had to move to Minnesota for 6 months to a year. And this is Ophi. I volunteered.
And how funny looking back that it was New Moon publishing New Moon magazine, and here we are being astrologers after that. But
there's so many weird things like that in our
Yes.
history. Well, when I was there, Jesse Ventura was a wrestler. He was Jesse the Body, and he was this flamboyant. He's a Cancer. He was this flamboyant, trash-talking wrestler who was, funny enough, third party, the Reform Party mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, running for governor. He wore these colorful feather boas, snake skin, was all oiled up. And I just remember making a bunch of jokes about that because it was the early days of the internet. It was the late 90s. And I was learning HTML by building a website about my experiences there. And I wrote something about Jesse the Body. It's not up anymore. I kind of wish it was. I'm going to have to revisit it. And now, so he was coming out. He went to his alma mater, the high school where ICE had been the same week.
And he won, though. He was the governor.
No, he won. He actually
Yeah,
won as third party. He was very critical of both Democratic and Republican parties. He was the governor of Minnesota from 1999 to 2003. So as the news went to Minneapolis, they happened to catch Jesse Ventura coming out of his old high school, and he went to, go show support for the students and the staff for the trauma of ICE coming there. And they interviewed him, and he had some really, I thought, awesome and true things to say. And it was I would say Google Fox 9 Minneapolis Jesse Ventura. And just, I was like, this is the unbridled spirit kind of leadership. Like, because he wasn't tied to party, to like one of the two main parties, he really had a lot of just what I thought were really true and resonant things to say. And I'm thinking, how wild that here we are, 25 years later, and his former boss, Linda McMahon, the head of the WWE, um, is now dismantling the Department of Education. And the former feather boa wearing wrestler is the voice of reason and wisdom here. Like,
That
what a
is
difference a quarter of a century makes, I guess.
that
So,
is insane. I mean, it's there was a lot of Venus energy out. I saw I forgot her name, but a black woman artist who's really talented to this beautiful portrait of Renee Nicole Good. There was a lot of art. Renee Nicole Good was an artist and a poet herself and a mother. And it's interesting to hear people going, say her name, which, it just this Minnesota tragedy happened like just a short, like a mile, I think, away from where George Floyd was. And I remember, say her name going in
Breonna
2020 about
Taylor.
Breonna Taylor and all of the erasure that happened around people of color who were murdered by law enforcement. And now it's like law enforcement seems tame compared to the vigilante ICE agents who are basically Trump and Kristi Noem's military. They have their private goon squad and their private mercenaries. Um, and of course,
Yeah.
the internet found the name of the killer, Jonathan Ross, the masked killer who turns out to be married to a Filipino woman. So it just gets so
You
convoluted.
pull the thread and so much comes out. Well, I have been, as I've been tracking some of you guys who have our 2026 horoscope book, and, we're getting ready today, for our yearly 2026 Planet by the Planets webinar in a couple hours. Super excited for that. We want to get our recording completed before that, but and if you missed it, you can still get the recording of it along with your book. But I've been tracing the history of the United States back several centuries, just to kind of look at how the astrology of the second half of the decade into the 2030s is lining up with some of the more granular patterns. And I've been reading a book that I highly recommend called A True History of the United States. And honestly, as I'm listening to it, I'm like, it's what I suspected, but it's really confirming. We have always been in civil wars, insurrections. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know it quite like that. And having the template of astrology to like correlate is making me listen more keenly. So, again, this is Ophi. Some of you guys have told us your voices sound the same. And I'm curious who's talking when I just listen to the podcast. We'll try to say that we know that. I
Mhm.
hear the podcast sometimes when I listen to it back. I'm like, is that me or Tali talking?
Right,
So
I know.
it's basically hopeless for the rest of you. So we'll try um, to
You can watch on
self-identify.
YouTube if you
You can
want. Yeah.
watch on YouTube. Yeah, that's what
Astro
some people are
Twins
doing.
dash TV. Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, I think yeah, it's been this is what the history is. And there've been private armies hired and you know, just yeah.
that's scary. Well, my version of Jesse Ventura, I have a crush on a nice Jewish boy, the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry. I love how he's just standing up and speaking out and showing up for all the communities there, the Somali community, and just like,
Yeah.
that kind of leadership feels like it's very quiet in the, outside of local politicians. And I think we're going to see a lot of shifts as we move into this year, the unbridled spirit, a lot of new, especially when Saturn and Neptune hit that 0 degrees Aries point on February 20th. we're going to see a lot of new leadership kind of emerging from the ether, I think, this year and next year too.
And
We're
he's
going
a
to see big.
Leo. So,
Is he? Oh,
Jupiter's going in, he's July 23rd. I
oh,
believe
that's
that's
right. He is. He
also
is.
J-Lo's birthday. But hey,
Hmm.
you never know.
Well, J-Lo, I want to J-Lo, Bad Bunny, um, and Jimmy Kimmel all offered to pay for Renee Nicole Good's funeral.
Oh,
J-Lo even
wow.
offered to come to the funeral.
Interesting.
I mean, that
Okay.
just makes
Maybe
me
she
love
psychically
Bad
heard our
Bunny.
memo last week. We kind of like we gave her a little bit of a little bit of crap for her Vegas show and some of the trad wife trope she was playing with in her vaudeville moment. But you know what?
Yeah.
Awesome. And
Well, but I love how Bad Bunny, is just really showing what it is to be an American citizen in ways that, just fly in the face of what this regime is trying to narrow down. Now, also in New York, we see, so this year, Jupiter is spending the first half of the year in Cancer, the sign of home and family. So, in a little bit of good news, we see Mayor Mamdani and New York Governor Kathy Hochul. They have a proposal out there. They're calling it the Two Care Act, which is free childcare for 2-year-olds and extended funding for pre-K and 3K childcare programs. So they're really working hard to just put something in place for, those the support of working parents and kids and childhood education that's so fundamental.
well, that does align with Jupiter and Cancer.
Hmm.
It's interesting hearing being in New York. Again, this is Ophi, just hearing what people think about uh, Zoran Mamdani and is he going to have enough of a foundation to make certain things free or lower the rents? What is that going to do? Is it going to, you know, um, someone was saying the free buses, there's a lot of unhoused people on the bus. I mean, it just, well, but it's like he's only been there a couple weeks, so that's not his work. So I'm just listening at the cafe to what people are talking about because they are talking about it.
That
And
is a thing in Seattle. There are free buses downtown, and we have a housing crisis here and a fentanyl crisis here, and sometimes the buses in those areas are the only places where people get on and ride and try to stay warm, and there's also some mental illness issues going on. So it's a
and it's a
a
bit like
valid concern, but it's
valid
all
concern, but the buses didn't create that. The cost of
right.
housing and the cost of
Exactly.
living and the closing of hospitals and mental
Lack of
health
shelters.
hospitals and shelters is what caused the fentanyl crisis, which of
There's
course is
so
being
many
blamed on
factors.
immigrants. Is Fox News feasts on that every
People
hour.
want to feel safe, and that's understandable. So there'll be things to work out there. But, it's like, are we safe anywhere on the streets in public? Only to a certain extent. We have to stay aware. I think it's gonna
Yeah, it was
play out
interesting
in
listening
interesting
to
ways.
people who said I heard these people who I wouldn't have expected, but I don't expect anything anymore really after last year. But they said they voted for Cuomo quietly because they were afraid to rock the boat. And I'm like, this is welcome to the year of the unbridled spirit. Welcome to 2026,
Boats
where
are rocking.
the
Don't come a
status
knocking.
quo, yeah, the status quo is not also not going to help us. The status quo is a lie. I mean, we didn't even have a two-party term limit for presidents until the 1950s. Like so
Mm.
much of, I mean, I'm really loving this book because the about the history of the US because it just reminded me of like so many of the even the Constitution and all these documents we put on a pedestal were crafted by, of course, a group of white men who are British or French or Spanish among themselves made agreements on how they were going to divide up stolen land. They
I
didn't
know.
bother to tell any of the people who lived here already. Like, I mean, so this brings us to we were looking at the United States chart and the transiting planets. So the United States has a 27-degree Pluto in Capricorn, and that is extremely relevant to this week because on Sunday, January 18th, we have a new moon. And it's not just an ordinary new moon. We have the sun and moon in Capricorn at 28 degrees.
One
So
degree
that
away.
1 degree away from the United States Pluto. And then we have Mercury, which is agreements, contracts, communication, messages, and Mars, the planet of anger, war, rebellion, uprising, outrage, both at 26 degrees Capricorn.
So
So
they're
when
kind of hugging the new moon and they're
yeah, when a
within a
planet
degree.
is within a couple of degrees of another one, that's when they start to blend their energy. So we've got four heavenly bodies connecting with Pluto.
And don't
And
forget, there's also a minor grand trine forming. So revolutionary radical Uranus in Taurus, which is money and land, interestingly enough, is going to be in this free-flowing trine while with the new moon.
and
So
an
it's
exact one because it's at
exact 20.
27 degrees Taurus, Pluto's 27 degrees Capricorn.
And
So
then a sextile with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, which is like all these shady backdoor dealings, chickens coming home to roost. Like, so what could happen could go a couple different ways. The new moon is always like an opening, but with Mars and Mercury there, could there be an attack, an attempted attack on Greenland, or maybe Iran, because the government there is cracking down on the massive, massive protests happening. People are tired of living under that restrictive regime. They want, I think it's like the prince from the Shah, the former
I
Shah.
mean, Pluto is abuses of power. It's the
Is
underground, it's all the hidden things. It's the shadow. It's the shadow of the nations in Capricorn.
And we need to
And
mention that back in 2022, the US had its
yeah,
Pluto return. So backing
and
it
let's
up a little
link to our
bit.
article that because
Yeah,
we did a lot of um, long
research and work.
essays and research about that in 2020, 21, and 22
So,
because it was
and what
on.
that means, that was so Pluto being all the stuff that's rotting in the basement, the secrets, the underground shame, and also the call for transformation. So, when the U.S. was established on July 4th, 1776. Pluto was at 27 degrees. I forgot how many minutes, but there was an exact connection for the first time because Pluto takes about 248 years to do a full orbit and return to where it was at a specific time. So that was the moment where, for the first time since the US was established, 248 years later, Pluto returned to that degree, that 27 degrees. And I forgot how many minutes, but it was right around 220,
It was like around
22.
222. Yeah, it was about on the
And
20th,
that
but
was when Russia attacked Ukraine. And we see
yeah.
how that has just dragged the US in because, we're learning more and more about Trump's weird ties. We don't know. It's very Plutonian. He seems to have these secret ties with Putin and Russia, not so secret. And we're just getting more and more information ever since. So this new moon, I think, is going to potentially expose
Oh yeah.
some Plutonian and Putinian things going
Yeah.
on,
I mean, there's so much. I mean, even the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Treaty of Paris that ended the Revolutionary War, all of that was very Pluto. These founding fathers, as much as we love the lore about them, I mean, they might have been no different than Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Trump, just kind of getting together and making up these.
unilateral
Yeah,
decisions. I'm watching
yeah.
1883. I'm almost done with it, but it's the story of these pioneers going from Texas to the Oregon Trail and they come across and befriend the Comanche indigenous tribe along the way. And just like, it's
quote
like,
unquote befriend before they take everything
well,
from
they're
them. Yeah.
very like, they're like, you keep stealing our land. And you just watch like the whole entitlement of like, we're going to go and settle, I mean, colonial settler has become, you know,
Well, it just reminds me, Ophi here again, that of the paper that I found that I wrote in 1992 for college, comparing Manifest Destiny, Pan-Africanism, and Zionism for an African American Studies class that I took, and I've got to make a copy of it. I've been
you
flipping my way
do.
through it, but it was very interesting. It's like this expansionist, speculative mentality that people have had of like, this call to action to go settle lands and
Your
make a new
land is
life
my
and da da da.
land.
Yeah,
Hmm.
this land is your land, this land is my land. No, it's like this land was already, yeah, and it's just we're seeing it all over. I
Well,
mean,
it's
this
like
is
we're gonna
not
take Venezuela, we're gonna bomb Mexico, like
well,
these
exactly. So
crazy
that's
threats right now. I do want to say though that Trump is getting pushback from the oil companies. They don't want to go in and take the oil. Like he's making no bones about, we're
gonna
gonna
take the
grab, we're gonna
oil.
take the oil, we're gonna take the rare earth minerals from Greenland. It's just like land grabs, resource grabs, what rich white men have, an entitled white men have been
And that's
doing for
Pluto,
years.
because I mean,
Mhm.
Pluto, Mercury, Mars. I mean, the USA's Pluto is in Capricorn. We've got Mercury, Mars, the Sun, and the Moon in Capricorn, and Uranus in Taurus. Those are all Earth signs. Pluto is what lies beneath. It's mining. It's all the things under the surface. Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is natural resources. You know, jewels, gems.
And they're
Everything like
all
that.
moving into fire and air signs. I mean, Pluto's already in Aquarius now. And next week, though, like this week is going to be more egregious. I mean, Maria Corina Machado, the
Yeah, she's
resistance
coming.
leader from Venezuela, is going to Mar-a-Lago to give Donald Trump her frickin' Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, and
Is that a
so
done deal? Is she really doing
well,
that?
well, I mean, I think it's like you can look at it one of two ways. Maybe she's like, screw this peace prize. I want my country to be
Yeah.
led. I don't care if that's what it takes. I'll do anything. But at the same time, like, okay, well, once you're in charge over there, how much control are you going to give him? And
I
like,
mean, she's a Libra. There are so many Libras in leadership
mm,
roles right now,
Putin,
from Putin to
Netanyahu.
Netanyahu to Malay to, you know, AOC, Gavin Newsom, Zoran Mamdani. There's like, I've never seen so many Libras in
Well,
charge.
they have
And
Jupiter in their solar 10th house. So
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I guess if I was in her case, it'd be like it's like these prizes and all these kind of Western, showy, ego-driven kind of symbols, like or your country's freedom. If that is indeed what she's about, then yeah, let him have the frickin' prize, pacify his ego, and get what you really want. But I don't know.
Well,
I
this
don't.
week's gonna be a lot of power plays, but next week I do have some hope, and we'll talk about it more, of course, on next week's podcast. But this week there's a Capricorn cluster F. There's the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. But Venus is already starting to defect on Saturday. It's moving into Aquarius until February 10th. So Venus object is much more like planet of peace, love, harmony in idealistic humanitarian Aquarius. That cannot be a bad thing. And then next week it's like boom, Monday the Sun and Mercury go into Aquarius,
Mhm.
and then they will be and the Sun and Pluto connect in Aquarius. So there's a Pluto Cazimi, which is going to be interesting. So
Oh my.
Pluto, I like a Pluto Cazimi because it's like exposes all the it's like the sun is just blasting into Pluto's like shadowy well. Like what we're going to find out, it might already come this week, but I think next week, those Epstein files, maybe. I mean, the corruption is going to be exposed. And will people do anything about it?
Yeah, the
I don't
question
know.
is, does anyone it's like I've never been clearer that we're dealing with a cult
Yeah,
here,
it's like
because
nothing
there's
can be
nothing
done.
that's going to I saw someone who was, one of the smart people that is posting on social media and providing us with non-regime news, and they were saying, like, if you're waiting for someone to show up, they're not, and fix it, they're probably not. You have
Well,
to get out there.
Mars is
Yeah.
going into Aquarius on Wednesday. Or is it Wednesday, the 23rd next week? I think it's yeah,
Hmm.
not this week, but first we've got Venus this week, but next week MLK Day on Monday, while the Sun and Mercury go into Aquarius. The Melania movie comes out on
The
Tuesday. How
Melania
ridiculous.
documentary that was like this, it's never been like almost more laughably but horrifyingly like 1930s 40s propaganda, like Amazon producing the Melania I forgot how many millions of dollars she was
About an
paid for it too.
immigrant, an immigrant, the immigrant story we don't need to see, you
They're
know?
like parading around like she's some faux first lady involved in all of Donald's decisions. It's like, oh, the spin.
Peach
So
Melania. I mean, well, Wednesday, just to back it up a little bit, Mars is going into Aquarius. And actually,
the
Mars,
23rd.
Wednesday the 23rd, so not this week, but um, Mars went into Aquarius at the beginning of the pandemic, actually, which is interesting. But people did come together in interesting new ways then. It
Mm-hmm.
was, and then it was again in 2024. It was, we've had a couple Mars and Aquarius, transits 2022, 2024.
I mean,
But
Aquarius is a sign of the people. That's what there is to know. It's a sign
Mhm.
of groups. Mars can be militarized. That's maybe not so good for ice stuff, but I mean, I just saw that they're paying influencers like $1,500 to make promotional videos about joining ice. And Christy Nome just called Tim Walls and Jacob Fry, or Frey, however you say it, like said, grow up. I mean, that is straight out of the playbook of MAGA right there, just to like
well, and
something horrible. Oh God,
JD Vance, we have to just rake over the coals too.
rip
Like
him a
he
new one here that
basically
he
said that
deserves.
the ICE agents have absolute immunity, so go ahead and kill whoever you want, and that they're going to start coming door to door. I mean, he is like
Wow.
straight up shameless white supremacist. It's crazy. Usha, what are you doing? Like maybe you think you're safe aligning yourself with this guy, but like his white supremacy rhetoric has gotten so bad. Like, you don't have to apologize for being white. And he's like critiquing Jasmine Crockett's nails. Bitch, don't talk about a black woman's nails, her hair, anything about
Wow.
her, like whatever. She's got,
I mean,
he's just
such a phony
cruising.
con artist. He's had so many different names, and he's not even who he says he is. He's a puppet, and puppets are part of authoritarian regimes. They rely
Even
on.
looks like a marionette, doesn't
He
he? Like,
does. I mean, he's a Leo, and Jupiter doesn't just reward you; it comes and gives you what Jupiter. I mean, I think it was Susan Miller who said this once, that Jupiter just creates an abundant crop, a bumper crop of whatever
she
you
said Jupiter's
plant.
like Santa Claus, but Santa might be bringing you a sack of coal,
Yeah, she did. Yeah, Santa might be bringing coal or an abundance of, it's when you reap what you've been sowing. So with the South Node going into Leo too, around the same time, mid-year, July 26th of 2026,
Leo's
that's
like JD Vance are not going to prosper for
it's not gonna
doing
go
that
well.
harm, for doing I there was some spot of more good news too. There's cracks in the regime, like Trump is acting more and more dementia ridden. I mean,
There
honestly,
are, but honestly, like, I don't.
Well, I just want to,
Yeah,
the Affordable Care Act, the House has
that's true.
voted to extend for 3 years, and it's going in front of the Senate. So hopefully, some Republicans will defect if they want to be voted in or even have a chance during the midterms this year. They would be wise to not leave their constituents bereft of health care,
Maybe that's
affordable
where the
health care.
Aquarius influence will come in with
Venus and
like a
Aquarius, maybe.
reminder that the people, that we, the people, are still, I mean, uh, on paper, our country's supposed to be democratic. That's Aquarius. It's not behaving that way. And
It never
nobody's,
has been for everyone here,
it
but
never has been. Exactly. That's what, in theory, on
but it's also
paper.
never had. Maybe it has from the book you're reading. We'll drop that title in the show notes,
I
but
think this is probably the worst we've ever, the most egregious. And I mean, given where we are in history and that this is happening, I think this might be the worst we've ever seen. But what do I know? I've only been on the planet half a century. So, but
certainly the worst we've seen in our time, And we
and
were in New York during September 11th, and this just like
well, that's true. That was also in the year of the snake, 2001, and that was a rough year. February 17th can't come soon enough, even though the horse has its own set. I mean, everybody's so
fire
excited
horrors.
about the fire horse because it sounds sexy, like a dragon, but the fire horse is a wild creature, and we see already, you know, ICE agents being emboldened actually by what happened to Renee Nicole Good. I mean, they're knocking people's phones out of their hands. They've been told to step up their harassment and aggression. And it's just so
We have
again,
got
I
to
want
get
to,
Christy Nome out of
she has got to
there.
get out of there,
I
but
think
it's
the
just
March 3rd Virgo eclipse, it's a total lunar eclipse with the Virgo full moon on March 3rd, is
maybe
going
that'll
to
do
be a
it.
good one for
It'll
maybe
get her out of there.
clearing some things. I also don't think that's going to be good for Trump's heart. And um, I don't
He
know.
has one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's cold, the functioning, like, yeah, heart that doesn't connect to his brain.
Eclipses are intense that way. Just kind of backing to what you said about Usha. I mean, I think that what happens in these moments in history, you wonder how people go along with it. Well, it's like the frog in the pot of water that gets turned up bit by bit and then it doesn't realize that the pot is boiling and it's cooking. I'm not saying she's innocent. I have no idea. There are people who you can tell yourself things like, well, this is just what we have to do, and the end will justify the means. And, you know, when they amass more power, they'll undo it. Well, it
Mhm.
doesn't work that way. The I think that that's what we're going to be seeing more and more of as 2026 progresses, especially in the second half of the year when Jupiter goes into Leo. Is like, no, that didn't work actually. Protection, whatever you plant is what grows. If you put anti-immigrant, protectionist structures into place, then they're just going to get bigger. So I want everybody to remain hopeful, but not in a false hope way. Like we do have to acknowledge the good things that happen, like what's happening in New York with childcare, absolutely. But this year is a year of like not being blindly optimistic either. Like we can't just expect it to fix itself. The snake is hypnotic, but the snake year ends February 17th.
Well, a
And we
couple,
are under a
yeah.
spell here.
We are, but a couple interesting things we need to, so that 3 days later on that eclipse, I just pulled up Trump's chart. Um the On February 20th, the Saturn Neptune conjunction happens in his eighth house. The eighth
Mhm.
house is the most intense of, you know, birth to death, reproduction, transformation. So that one could hit him really hard. Also
Hope he
the
doesn't do anything
eclipse.
stupid
Well,
with
it's
them
true.
being an Aries, the sign of war.
Right. He might be on a,
Might be
yeah.
plotting something for then. Again, I don't want to be right about that, and that's just that's
Well,
me.
he also has the eclipse on February 17th, the solar eclipse, Ring of Fire is happening in the
Aquarius.
sixth house of health. So that could be interesting too, with him showing signs of diminishing health. We also have to mention
Mm-hmm.
that the USA is having its Chiron return.
Yeah.
And the USA had Chiron in Aries, 20 degrees Aries, and Chiron every 49 years comes back to it was. Chiron is an asteroid that has been getting a lot of buzz in recent years. We call it the wounded healer. That's the key. It's shaped like a key. So it's where our wounds can unlock our healing gifts, but we have to address them. We have to do the shadow work. On the 2024 inauguration, I'm sorry, election day, the US presidential election day, there was an exact Chiron return, 20 degrees of the US. So it's like in Aries. So those wounds around
War
leadership and
wounds.
war and power and aggression, as well as our freedom and independence, have been getting agitated and poked. And that already started a couple years earlier when Chiron got close to that degree. Now, Chiron is currently at 22 degrees. So we're still in this passage for a while. This year, the summer, Chiron will be moving into Taurus for a little while, uh, June 19th to September 17th. And that's going to activate a different energy. How do we deal with land? What do we speak up for? What are our values? What values do we need to return to? How do we deal with food, supply chains, industry? Like, we're all going to be dealing with that collectively. But the US's Chiron return, I mean, just the first half of this year, guys, it's chaotic, it's crazy. We still have to wait for Uranus to go into Gemini on April 25th. And Ophi, you mentioned earlier about, all these earth signs with like, we're still in the, like,
Material resources
yeah, we're
that Earth represents, the
oil and
fighting
the
over that.
Well, the oil and the rare earth minerals, when these outer planets, as they move into air signs, it's going for technology. So the fact that we're
The
trying to,
AI and chip wars. But you need those minerals to make all the chips and produce the AI, and you need the
even to,
land, the
yeah,
farmland, which is Uranus and Taurus and the Capricorn and Earth. You need literal Earth
well,
acreage to move into that air
and
age.
Greenland also has the water for the data centers. I mean, it's just like, couldn't we just like, why do we have to grab the land? We don't. I mean,
Well,
the
in
whole,
the way the world, this planet, the effed up way this planet is set up, the people in power, that's how they operate. Power for me, not for thee, and there's no collaboration, no cooperation, and there was, I think NATO has something happening in its chart too. I had the chart of it, that's coming back around. I think it was during Uranus and Gemini that. Let me check on that.
Well, while you do, there's a new term that's out there called friction maxing that I can talk about a little bit. This is it's like the idea that when you actually are solving problems and dealing with friction in your life, you're actually maximizing your potential as a human, which is a lot like when you go to the gym and you push and you lift weights and you break down a muscle. That's how you build it up. And the whole concept is that things have gotten so easy. Oh, just let me check my phone. Like, we don't have, AI will answer this for me. Like, the lack of, you know, effort that we have to put into things has actually diminished our capabilities as human beings. And I think that's interesting. I'm kind of looking at that in this one year, this unbridled spirit year, especially, I did start going back to the gym and working out with a trainer last year when they opened an Equinox finally in Seattle. I like my fancy gyms for motivation. It's my splurge, but I feel so,
Maxim.
yeah, I feel great and more, ready to take on challenges when I'm working out. And I've definitely lapsed on that for years. I used to do hot yoga in New York. I was like, wow, that was like 15 years ago. I can't keep riding that wave. Anyways, the point is like the
Yeah.
ease that we have created for ourselves may actually, like is causing us to kind of cling to the comfort of these systems. We don't want change because, oh my God, we don't want to let go. It's going to be harder. But what if the harder actually is the thing that not only strengthens us, but creates community? As I'm watching 1883, and I'm like, I don't want it that hard. Those pioneers and their wagons and the tornadoes and the
It was fighting against nature, fighting against people who already lived and fighting over resources with people who you basically had to
but
steal
people
or
had
drive
some,
them off the land. They
well,
burned
sure.
so many native, like
Of
the
course. I mean, that was, but to the point is definitely not to step over
yeah.
that, but also to just say that, like, people might have been happier when they were working in farms and fields or having to figure things out on their own. There's like a dopamine hit that you get from solving problems.
Yeah, we don't
And
want AI to do everything for us. It's like, then what are we doing? Just bored and taking up space or struggling even more because we're disconnected from, what it actually takes to be self-sustaining. I know what I wanted to talk about too, beyond just Nate. Yes, indeed, NATO was formed at the very end of Uranus and Gemini in 1949. It had its North Node return in Aries, but the chart of Minnesota.
oh, yeah.
Minnesota is in both a Neptune North Node and all three. It's in a Neptune North Node and Uranus return.
Whoa.
Yeah. So when Minnesota was formed, I'm gonna put my glasses on and look at the chart. It was for May 11th, 1858. The North Node was at 15 degrees Pisces. It's in Pisces right now. I think at around, let me look at where it is right now. Um, it's at 10 degrees. So North Node return is like an awakening of sorts. We've got
Compassion to
yeah,
human rights and Pisces, also Virgo with like
yeah, all the
integrity, service, protection, community, gather,
yeah.
yeah.
Neptune was at 24 degrees Pisces. It's rounding out. It's at 29 degrees now. It's at its very end, but the last part of Neptune in Pisces, that's a very long
So it's been having
cycle.
its Neptune return all this time, and so much has happened
Probably
there.
since, I mean, I'm going to go back to
Look at 2020.
2020 when George Floyd was murdered.
I'll
And
look that
then
up while you're talking about this. Yeah.
but even wilder, and this really explains the awakened revolutionary spirit. I mean, like I said, I lived in Minnesota, and they used to talk about Minnesota nice, which I see as being, you know, uh, turned into a slogan with anti-ICE protesters too. But I mean, Minnesotans were very like, I did not fit in there because it was such a polite society, but it was always progressive, and they might have done it quietly in this very kind of white people way, but it was very much like, you don't do that here. So, and they have large indigenous population. you know they have a lot of casinos and reservations, and that's problematic in and of itself, which I'm not going to unpack. But Minnesota was formed with Uranus at 28 degrees Taurus. Uranus is at 27 degrees Taurus. If that is not a button
Whoa.
that activates a revolution, yeah, there is going to be a lot of counter action to ice. Did you find
Yeah,
the
Neptune
chart?
was at 20 degrees Pisces in
Still
May and
pretty close,
June
4 degrees
2020
away.
when George Floyd was murdered. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's about the same distance as it is now, just on the other side of it. So yeah, I mean, California is also having, I think, like a Pluto return or something like that. The two states that are being targeted, I don't know about Chicago's chart. We'll have to look at that as well.
Yeah,
But
and Portland too. I mean, it's just I
yeah,
unfortunately, the first half of the year, we're still gonna just see these systems crumbling, leadership, like this protectionism, this Jupiter and Cancer and Saturn and Neptune being close together in Aries,
and
uh
in Pisces
and
now.
Pisces. Yeah, just like
It's a time in our history that is happening for a reason. I mean, always go back to human design, and
yeah.
we have a whole chapter about this in our 2026 horoscope, our big book, that we're ending this 411-year cross of planning, as it's called, 412, on February 15th, 2027. There was about 400-year cycle for the whole planet in human design based on the precession of the equinoxes and the 64 I Ching hexagrams and how they divide it up. But we're at the end of that, and we're going to the cross of the sleeping phoenix era, February 2027. So we're a year away from ending something that started in 1615, the first U.S. I don't know what you even want to call them, prospectors, the gentlemen who came looking for gold and ended up starving to death in Jamestown, Virginia, and eating each other as cannibals one winter later, and being saved by one of their party members learning how to grow tobacco by watching the indigenous people. That was in 1607.
So
So
right at
just
the end
about
of
8 years.
cross, oh,
Yeah,
wow,
right before the beginning of the cross of planning.
that's
Well,
so yellow jackets.
1618 is when they decided to start using African slaves to sustain and grow the tobacco industry that they were enriching themselves by sending it back to the mother country in England. So the first
Slave
people to
trade
come
began on this soil in the beginning of the cross of planning
in the
that's
beginning of the cross of
ending
planning,
on February
yeah,
15th, 2027.
yeah, that 400, yeah, exactly,
And these
1650.
ICE detention centers are private prisons that are basically, they are allowed, you can still use slave labor in prison, and it doesn't apply to incarcerated people here. You're allowed to
That is
exploit them
wild.
or give them $1 a day. So we're going to start seeing more
This
and
is all
more of that
breaking down.
rot. That is such rot in our country still. The prison system, like marijuana is legal now. Release people who are on the Clinton era charges, the
Well,
harsh.
that's what I'm really like in my own research I was doing prior to reading this book about the history of the US was, I already had been looking at Jamestown. And so we get told this story about these pilgrims landing on Plymouth Rock. Well, that's a completely different group of people. They came and they went to New England. This group that went to Jamestown in 1607 was a bunch of finance bros coming to look for gold. They didn't bring any women. They didn't bring any laborers. They're a bunch of pretty boys. It might as well have been a fleet of dudes from Mar-a-Lago going like, yeah, we're gonna get gold, and then being completely unprepared,
Like
starving to
Stephen
death.
Miller and Pete Hegseth going to
Yeah,
Venezuela,
imagine
and now
them like,
there's like
yeah,
revolution in the streets and
but
stuff.
imagine if they had to go to Venezuela and actually work. So, I mean, this is what we are now able to look back at those 411 years of and trace what we're. So I'll be, Ophi here again. I'll be reporting on that as it's a bigger project than I thought it would be, but it's going to keep my mind occupied with it's I busy your mind and busy your body. Do some friction maxing. I think in the year of the unbridled spirit, we need to keep our minds and our bodies sharp. Just we have to have
Mhm.
energy because um change demands energy, physical energy too. So take care. The most
Mental
radical
and
act is take
emotional
care of
too.
yourself too.
Get
If
enough
you ask me.
sleep. If you're going to bed earlier, that's understandable. You may find yourself, I mean, just the emotional, the grief and the loss and the
Mhm.
fear that's being drummed up and just like the horrors of not only watching just a mother being shot in cold blood by this random untrained security guard, but then watching the
At,
government double down on just like defending him and just
and blaming her for
they're
her own
casting
death.
spells. They're very good at casting spells with their words. It hurts my heart because like when you speak with that level of certainty that JD Vance and Christy know, it's like the malignant narcissism, the ability to just lie and spin. And when we were in Michigan last week, I could see, when our dad would watch the news or friends of ours would just catch news and just like those talking points get in your head. It's like, no, 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 no. It's like the spin is so just, it's like the authoritarian spin, the hard right, might is right spin. Oh, we have to be afraid. These people are bringing drugs into our country. They're bringing fentanyl in our country. It's like, no, it doesn't come from Venezuela. Okay. But people don't know. They don't do the research. They just take like the news.
He
uh,
looks like an authority. He must be right.
He's a
That's good enough
talking
for
head.
me.
Yeah. And so, like,
Saying it
we
with
need to
conviction.
question and research everything too, and also understand that I mean, it's very complicated. Nothing's black and white. So you might need, your brain's going to hurt a little and you're going to need more sleep and in order to be
Already noticed that
awake.
with people really they're needing more alone time and sleep. 1 year is like time with yourself. A lot of the friends that I was like communicating with regularly last year in the 9 year, and we were like getting each other through, have been kind of quiet and sovereign, not in any bad way, but
Mhm.
it's like we're kind of reconnecting to ourselves, and that's important. People are needing that
Yes.
me time more than ever. So don't feel bad about taking it. That's probably, I think we're moving through these 5 stages of grief. We were in shock and denial a lot of 2025, the bargaining, thinking that we could do something about it. Now we're in the anger phase, and that is obviously it's part of the process. So I guess be safe, definitely stay safe because we don't know what even peaceful protesters, they're trying to set people up as though they are
But don't
doing
isolate, yeah.
something.
And don't isolate though, even if you want to be alone. Like I
Yeah. Yeah,
yesterday had a
very
couple
much so.
friends over. We watched 1883 together and made dinner and it felt really good. Even though like at first I was yawning a little and I even made myself a cup of coffee at 7 p.m. and I slept just fine despite it. It was like I was like so glad I had to move through a little bit of like energy of resistance to being with people. And then I
Mhm.
was so glad that I was. So just because your
Yeah.
initial signals tell you you want to be alone, like I'm not saying to ignore your signals, but also say, do I want to be alone or am I just like knowing that I can't be on and excitable, but just like having really authentic conversations like god I'm feeling tired and I'm feeling sad and and so we
That's so funny. I was literally just talking to a friend about that too. It's like it's not that
Mhm.
you don't want to be with people, but you've probably been, like you said, on. They only know part of you. It's like
Mhm.
being together without any performance and expectation, having to maintain this energy level of like, being high on whatever like just yeah, let's just like
That's
get
not really
together
the
and body double.
frequency that we need right
Yeah.
now, although I do think it's going to come in with a fire horse. There's going to be like a
Yeah.
surge, and
We're
especially in the
feeling the
second half
end.
of the year. Yeah.
We're feeling the end of the Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, which is water, Uranus
The end
and
of a time
Taurus.
that was really in some ways both beautiful and harmful because I actually made a long video about this on Instagram, but one of the things like Neptune and Pisces, Neptune's been in Pisces for a long time since April 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, it lulled us into this false sense of serenity. I
Yeah.
mean, there's been a really beautiful, I think, global spiritual awakening. We had the Mayan calendar lore and just like, but it
Wow. Yeah.
people do yoga now, they do plant medicine, they
I mean, we were total
meditate.
weirdos. We started writing astrology for Mind Body Green in 2011, and it was like this radical thing that they were
Fringy.
including astrology on the site, and now it's like it's
Yeah,
just baked
astrology
into
has real
everything.
astrology, tarot, all the
Plant
esoterics,
medicine, wellness,
yeah,
acupuncture, healing.
detoxing, all the things that are
That was all
very
like, what? You do
Neptune and
what?
Pisces, but in some ways, but also Pisces being this invisible realm. Like, since, I mean, I think iPhones and smartphones, like, think about the amount of sort of time
Surveillance.
travel surveillance, but also like the way we communicate with each other. Like, we are no longer needing to be in the same room as each other. We have parasocial relationships. We
Mhm.
have invisible friends in a way, like, because you're
Yeah.
not really here with me, but you're here with me even while we're doing this podcast, and that's normalized. That was not normal in
It's like,
2010
and maybe
when,
in some ways it's like not healthy, but
well,
it's
yeah,
also awesome that you can connect with it's awesome that you can connect with your people no matter
yeah.
where you are physically. It's also made for a lot of scary kind of
And
people
also,
coming together in cults.
that's true. Or
Yeah.
underground. I mean, it's the Pisces is a fish swimming in two different directions. But as Neptune moves into Aries for 13 years, starting January 26th already, all the way until March 23rd, 2039. So a long time. But we are going to, I think, want to be more in the immediate with people. I already see people are having
Hmm.
like analog gatherings, put your phone away, no phones allowed. You have to put it in a basket. Like I also saw like it's interesting, Pisces rules dancing, and I saw like people don't go dancing anymore because they don't want to
Mm.
be turned into a meme for like making, I'm just like, that's so
Bleeding
sad. Like
tease.
dancing was like everything. It's when we saw Dua Lipa twice this year, I we were dancing the whole time, but like people around us weren't. I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm a Gen Xer, but I'm like, there's
Hmm.
no way I'm not going to be dancing. But I was like shocked by how many people weren't, both
Just
at Madison
standing
Square
there.
Gardens and in Seattle. I mean, there were people who were, but like, wow, we need to break, like, dancing is such a form of like ritual. Like, come so
And speaking of
anyways.
Dua Lipa, one of the things that's happening next week is we are going to be having our first debut as the astrologers for Service 95 for Dua Lipa's amazing book club. So if you haven't been to service95.com or followed them, it's I feel like if anything gives me hope, it's like what that platform is about. It's very much like what our magazine Hughes that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast was about, was up to, like people coming together, like, you know, just what you said about Say Her Name. That was
Hmm.
created for a black woman who was
Visibility.
murdered. Well, Renee Good was a white woman, but what I'm really happy to see is that, like, obviously we're aware that there's a difference in how black and white women are regarded by society, but that it could happen to anyone, that we need to not buy into that as a dividing factor in this
And then
consolidation for
allyship.
humanity. Allies is the word that really what the sleeping phoenix era is going to be about. Allies to you, be fully yourself. That's what the age of Aquarius is a paradox. It's about individuality and togetherness. It's a sign of groups, but also originality and uniqueness. So how we navigate that in the world, like, is going to be a theme that we're actually going to be really unpacking in the next month and in the fire horse year and with the
Something that
upcoming
a lot,
eclipse.
a lot that
A
us,
month from now, sometimes you feel the eclipse a month early.
mhm.
Susan Miller always said that too, and I've tracked it over the years. It's true. So we're going to get some signs of what the February 17th eclipse in Aquarius is going to bring over this week as well. So yeah, I mean, just stay safe, tune into yourself, try to keep it a little more real, and just you know, we'll get through this together, I guess. I don't know what else to say, but if you don't
Well,
have
we
your
have
20,
support for that too from all the Aquarius planets going.
come,
Yeah.
yeah, come together. So if you don't have your 2026 horoscope book yet, astrostyle.com/new year. We still have some bundles and special deals. If you weren't, a lot of people love to get them before the new year, but then there's always a group of people who are like, I wasn't even ready to face a new year until the end of January. So if you're ready, you can still watch the replay of our Planet by the Planets webinar that we're doing shortly and follow along and plan out your year.
And I want to make a real plug for the manifestation bundle, which has been our most popular bundle because it's so great. It is the big book, which has all 12 signs on it. So you can share it, leave it on your coffee table. And it has our almanac, which has a lot of the historical conversations that we have on this podcast. And you get to pick a single sign planner, a daily planner. So that has moon and an ephemeris for every single day. It's just for your sign. So if you're like, some people get it for their rising sign, some people get it for their sun sign. I no longer interfere. You choose. I like reading for the sun when it comes to something like that, just because it's your personality and essence. But the rising
And
is
we have a
just as
3
good.
for 99, so you can get your sun,
That's
your
true.
moon, and
But the
not your moon, sorry, your
manifestation,
sun and rising, and then one for
that's
your
true.
friends.
You can
or
also
the manifestation bundle where you have it all.
and then you also get
Um,
a tote with that, and in the manifestation bundle, you
Crystal
get
of
the
the
big
year.
book, one daily planner, our La Luna tote, and the crystal of the year, and all the bonuses, which is this webinar that you'll still be able to listen back to, totally relevant and good, and then a calendar plus, so it allows you to add all the hotspot dates, your digital calendar, so they pop up with a reminder when there's a new moon.
Your
People
Google
love
or
that.
iCal.
Yep.
And we have a number of free events, free and not free events coming up over the next couple weeks. We're going to be at Godmother's Books in Montecito. We have a workshop. It might be full, but there might be a couple spots. And then a book signing and talk on January 14th. So if you're in the LA or Santa Barbara area or you want to come over there, we'll be there on the 14th. And I've got I think it's sold out one in New York, but in Connecticut, Darien, Connecticut at Haven, January 28th, and a bunch of others. We're going to have a bunch of webinars in February as well. So head over to astrostyle.com/events with an S at the end. We'll add the link and
Show
sign
notes
up,
are going to be
join us.
packed today. Yeah.
They really are. We got Pluto. We got a whole lot. So we're going to go get ready for this webinar and
See anyone there retroactively. You'll be listening to this and being like, I saw you already. But
yes,
thanks
I will
for
be wearing
tuning
the same
in.
thing if you're on YouTube. So, hey, everyone. and and we wish you well through this week. Happy new moon. Stay safe. Stay empowered.
First
stay
new moon of the
connected.
year, the first new moon in Capricorn. So getting down to business,
The goals, kicking off those goals. We're
let's-
going to be planning those out with everybody now. So,
all right.
See you next week.
See you next week, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to AstroTwins Radio. If today's episode gave you an aha moment, we'd be over the moon if you left us a 5-star review. It helps fellow astrology lovers find us. And make sure to hit subscribe and follow us on iTunes and Spotify so you never miss an episode. Want the full visual experience? You can also watch the video version on our YouTube at AstroTwins-TV. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at AstroTwins and head over to astrostyle.com to read your free daily, weekly, and monthly horoscope that we write for you with love. Until next time, move with intention and let the universe meet you there.